Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome to my hobby blog. Today we are doing one of the impromptu reviews that I do where usually I watch a movie that I really want to talk about and it is totally unplanned whether I was going to do a video or not. And this is one of them. I have been starting to go through this DVD box set of a director's work, and it's a director who I have mentioned before I don't have much love for. I think he's a very toxic, not a good person at all. But his films that he makes are just so good that you kind of have to separate the artist from the art. And I've discussed this director before in a Withering Watchpower episode. I believe it's the Creature Features when I discussed the film The Birds from late 1950s, early 60s, I believe, and everything surrounding Tippi Hedren. And I discussed the pranks that he would do on set and off the set to people. And so if you want to know more about why I don't really like Alfred Hitchcock as the specific director that I'm talking about, if you want to find out why I don't like him, go track that video down. It's pretty available. I mean, it's in the Withering Watchpower playlist. But the film that I watched tonight that I have a lot to say about. First, the box set that I am going off of, that I'm exploring, is this DVD Velvet box set. It comes with about 20, I think, of his films. And I've seen a good number of them, but I'm now diving into the ones that I have no idea about, that I don't really hear get recommended, but when I do hear about them, they have high praise. And so the film that I watched tonight was 1964, I believe. The film Marnie, which is on this side, right there. This stars Tippi Hedren again. I believe this was her second film after The Birds, and we know how traumatic the filming of The Birds were. They used The Birds to attack Tippi Hedren because she wasn't meeting all of the demands that Alfred Hitchcock had wanted to impose on her. And so I discuss it more when I discuss The Birds, but in this film, I don't know if this was on purpose or not, but I have a feeling that Sean Connery is supposed to be our main hero, and that Tippi Hedren is supposed to be this crazy lady who needs a man in her life to straighten her out. That was the impression that I got throughout the entirety of this film. Because what this movie is about, and I'm not going to go into spoilers, but Tippi Hedren plays the character Marnie, and she is a obsessive thief. She goes throughout all over the U.S. stealing from banks, stealing from what's it called? Like tax offices. She is really good at it. She is stealing thousands upon thousands of dollars back in the 60s. And she's getting away with it. And slowly but surely, people start to kind of catch on to it. But it's not until she starts working for her boss, who is Sean Connery, that he kind of catches on and hires a private investigator, because he realizes that he's met her before, and that her old boss from a different job pointed her out to him. And she changes her hair color, in order to sneak in and out of various jobs and cities and all of that. And so once Sean Connery catches wind of this and finds her out, he forces her to marry him. And this is when I start to really dislike his character, because she has obvious trauma towards men, and we don't know why. She just does not ever want to be touched by a man. She is very negative and just very anti-man, which it completely makes sense once you find out the, I guess, reveal at the end of the film. And the entire movie, he's like, "Oh, you'll come around," and he shoves the door open and doesn't let her sleep in her own room when they go on a cruise for the honeymoon. And the entire time she's crying and saying, "Please let me go. I will leave your life. Like, please just let me go." And Sean Connery is being himself, the character he always plays. I guess this was around the time when he was James Bond in the 007 movies. But he is so insistent that he can fix her. And one of the most disturbing parts is that from the very beginning of the relationship, and I don't just mean relationship as in marriage, but I mean from one of the first times that he is in her presence, he completely breaks and pushes through her boundaries and kisses her while she's having a meltdown because there's a big storm. She has trauma in relation to storms, and the sound of rain and thunder just triggers her, and it triggers some sort of traumatic memory that she's unable to, I guess, that she's unable to remember. And so anytime she sees the color red, anytime she hears rain or thunder, anytime she goes to bed in her mother's house, she is triggered into a meltdown or breakdown. And so throughout this film, watching Sean Connery's character completely take advantage of her in terms of her being completely debilitated, in terms of her having a mental breakdown anytime her trauma is triggered. I really did not like him. Because by this point the birds had been made, and Tippi Hedren was pretty much hated by Alfred Hitchcock, and he blacklisted her from Hollywood after this film. I think the point of the movie was that Sean Connery is the main character, and everything I said is what I believe of what Alfred Hitchcock intended, because there was a lot of issues behind the scenes in terms of this movie and The Birds. I have the Blu-ray box set, which I think I showed in the Creature Features episode of the Withering Watch Pile, where it has Rear Window, Psycho, North by Northwest, The Birds, of course, and then Vertigo. Probably, I think it goes without saying that it's basically the greatest hits of Alfred Hitchcock. If he was musical person, and that his movies were like, each movie was like an album or a song, that box set is most definitely the greatest hits. And so I really, really enjoyed this movie. This movie has a lot of great twists throughout the film. I think the last sequence is really well done. And there's a part in this movie that is kind of traumatizing to watch, because Marnie finally is able to escape from Sean Connery by about the middle point towards the end of the film. And she has a passion for horse betting. So she goes to horse races, and that's when she keeps bumping into people who say, "Oh, hello, Mary," or, something close to her real name, but it's one of her aliases that she has made. And so she's at this horse race, and there's a specific horse by Fiore, I believe the horse's name is, that she has a true love for, and she finds a lot of comfort in the horse's presence. And so there's a point in the movie where she not takes the horse, but she gets on the horse and just goes. She just leaves, and you see in the background that he is on a horse too, even though he despises horses. His desire to own Marnie, or Tippi Hedren's character, because they do have a argument early on in the film where she says, "I'm not some kind of animal that you can keep caged," and he says, "Yes, you are. You are my prize," or whatever, and I'm not gonna let you go that easily. So there's a lot of really toxic messaging through him throughout the entire film. But she gets on the horse and she gets away, and it's doing the jumps over the fences, and things seem very hopeful for her until the horse breaks its legs. And I don't know if they did this on purpose or if they did this intentionally, but the horse was screaming that while they were filming. It was an absolute pain. What happens is that it jumps over the fence, and I guess to get the shot, they tied a piece of rope to the horse's leg so that it would flip over after jumping the fence. And Tippi Hedren's character is blue screened, I guess, because green screen was not around at this point. And they really perfected the technique of blue screens to be able to have someone, moving like this on a horse. In the background would be, the landscape that she is riding through. And so she's riding, and she gets there, and she's thrown, and it looks really awful, the blue screen effect. But in regards to the actual horse falling and kicking and having a broken leg, it looked very genuine. So I don't know if this movie was a major contributor to more animal rights laws in terms of filmmaking, but it was pretty horrific to watch. It is screaming, and while they are filming, Tippi Hedren just sobbing and being, like, "Oh my God, let me get a gun. I need to kill my horse." And the two women who she runs into, because it's the fence is on the other side of a big house, like an estate. And so she goes there to get help, and they're not listening to her. The horse is screaming in the background, and they just don't listen to her. And for a while, they don't do anything. And finally, they say, "Okay, let's get a gun." But I don't know. That was one part that I really did not like. Everything about this film is so well set up. It's really well structured. I loved the writing of it. The dialogue was a bit dry at points. It was very much your 1960s dialogue. I don't know how to describe it, but when you see it, you see it. And hopefully you can understand what I mean in that regard. But it's very just kind of like... yeah. I don't really know how to describe it. I'm trying to think of a way. But if you ignore the animal rights issues in this film, and you actually view this film in the light of Marnie as a completely traumatized and oppressed woman throughout this film, because she is throughout this, and we get multiple scenes of her mother, who is completely distant from her. And Marnie, played by Tippi Hedren, is completely jealous because there's a little girl who lives across the street, and she's getting a whole lot more attention than Marnie is from her mother, or from, I guess, the neighbor, from Marnie's mother. But we get all of that cleared out. Everything is set up so well. One thing that I do notice a lot in Hitchcock films is that the last 15 minutes or so is always the exposition dump, where they explain everything about the mystery. And there's one thing that I think isn't really necessary. There were a lot of details at the end in regards to why Marnie is the way she is and what triggers her. And there were a little too many details. Like, I think it was the last 10 or 15 minutes of the film was just Sean Connery going, now remember what happened here. Now what happened? What happened then? Marnie, you have to focus on your memory. What happened next? And it goes a little too long. I think Hitchcock has a tendency to do that. It's very much. I'm trying to think of a really good comparison, but sometimes you don't need to explain everything. I think what would have been great is because they have a flashback scene of what happens, and they don't need to have it be explained. I think the flashbacks speak for themselves. And so that's kind of my one big complaint about this film, outside of the very toxic masculinity that happens throughout. But seeing Tippi Hedren get taken advantage of throughout the film and not being listened to is so infuriating to me. And I'm so happy that Tippi Hedren was able to get away from Alfred Hitchcock after this film, although her career was completely destroyed. And she had to go do a film like Roy, which I haven't seen yet, but I think everybody knows about it. She broke a leg on camera. It was an animal attack film where they filmed at some guy's lion sanctuary and cheetah and tiger sanctuary. It was kind of like the Tiger King of the 1970s, I believe, is when the film was made. And Tippi Hedren has to literally fight lions and tigers and cheetahs throughout the film. And at one point, an elephant grabs her by the leg and breaks her leg on camera. And she is dropped, 5 feet to 10 feet in the air, because elephants are pretty tall. But yeah, there's I always talk about how behind the scenes things definitely come into my opinion about films. And there's a bit of a silver lining in this film because she did get away from the abusive Hitchcock. I think that is a very valid criticism that I have about him. Everybody knows the stories. They discuss it openly on all of the not commentary tracks, but special features and the Blu-ray box set that I have, talking about his pranks. And they're not pranks, they were destructive and pretty awful to the people that he pranked. And so I think that's it for today. I really enjoyed this film, but there's a lot of things that kind of keep it down. But if you don't care about those behind the scenes things, which some people do not, and that's fine, I think you would really, really enjoy this film. But you definitely have to have a more critical eye, because Sean Connery, it seems, is supposed to be the main character, but in, I guess, 58 years later, from 1964, when this film was made, I think the narrative has flipped a bit. Now, I think people today see Tippi Hedren as the main character. And I'm very happy that in my very slight browsing of the Letterboxd reviews after I wrote a very quick review, I was kind of looking at what people were saying, and a lot of people were rating it 5 out of 5. I think most of the reviews on there are 5 out of 5, which I would agree with, but Rio Rendo exists, and that's my favorite Hitchcock film. But a lot of people were saying that Tippi Hedren's definitely the main character. Excuse me. Is the main character, so I'm very happy that the narrative has switched a bit ever since this film has come out. So I think this is Tippi Hedren's best acting that I've seen. She's great in the Birds, but I mean, she isn't given all that much to work with because it is an animal attack film. This movie is all about trauma, and there are many scenes of her just acting so well. So this is definitely probably my top three of the Alfred Hitchcock films. It's this, Rear Window, of course, and I'm trying to think, either between the 39 Steps, because I love a good spy film. 39 Steps may be my number three, with this film, Marnie, number two, and Rear Window, number one. I think those are my top three right now, but as I go through this box set, I will try to do a few more reviews about a couple Hitchcock films. So that is all for today, and thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a great rest of the day. Thank you.